Welcome to Bedtime Stories channel. I'm Emma, and today we bring you the animated version of Cinderella. If you enjoy our stories, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more magical tales. Are you ready to dive into the magic? Once upon a time, in a kingdom far, far away, there lived a beautiful young girl. She was known throughout the land for her kindness and grace. However, despite her inner goodness, Cinderella's life was far from easy. After her beloved mother passed away, her father remarried a woman who was cruel and unkind, and Cinderella was forced to live in a small, dusty attic in their large house. Her stepmother, Lady Tremaine, was a woman with a heart as cold as ice. She never showed Cinderella any kindness and always found ways to make her life more miserable. Each day, she would assign Cinderella endless chores, making sure to remind her that she was nothing more than a servant in her own home.
Cinderella, have you finished scrubbing the floors? They must be spotless,
Lady Tremaine said.
Yes, Mother, I'm almost done,
Cinderella responded. The stepmother had two daughters, Anastasia and Drizella, who were just as unkind as her. The three of them made Cinderella's life a misery. Every day they would give her more work to do. She was always the one who cleaned the house, cook the meals, and take care of all the animals, including the cat Lucifer, who was a constant reminder of how little they cared for her.
Mother, I need my dress ironed immediately,
Anastasia said.
and my shoes polished. Cinderella, hurry up.
Drizella exclaimed.
Of course. I'll do it right away.
Cinderella responded. But Cinderella did not mind the work. She loved the little animals around her, particularly two mice named Gus and Jack. These two adorable creatures were her closest friends, and they would often help her with her chores, even though they were small and couldn't do much. They kept her company and gave her hope that one day things might change. While Cinderella worked tirelessly, her stepsisters would enjoy their time, laughing and making fun of her. They would go out to town, wearing their fine gowns and jewelry, while Cinderella stayed at home, covered in ashes from the fireplace. One day, a royal invitation arrived. The king and queen were hosting a grand ball at the palace, and they invited all the young ladies of the kingdom to attend. The royal family wanted to find a bride for their son, the prince. When Lady Tremaine heard the news, she immediately saw an opportunity for her own daughters to catch the prince's eye.
A royal ball! What a wonderful opportunity for my daughters to meet the prince!
Oh, Mother, he will surely choose me.
The first sister exclaimed.
No, me.
The second retorted. She instructed Cinderella to sew two beautiful gowns for her stepsisters so that they could be the most elegant women at the ball. She worked day and night to make the dresses for her stepsisters. They were beautiful gowns, but when they were ready, the stepsisters only mocked Cinderella for her efforts.
May I go to the ball as well, stepmother?
You go to the ball. Laughs well, I suppose, but only if you finish all your chores, and you must find something suitable to wear.
When Cinderella heard her stepmother's words that she would allow her to go to the ball, she was overjoyed. But then she remembered that she didn't have a beautiful dress to wear. Her only hope was to find something in her mother's trunk. She searched through the attic and found her mother's old gown. It was simple, but Cinderella believed she could make it work. Meanwhile, Gus and Jack, along with the birds, had gathered around and decided to help Cinderella. They worked together to transform her mother's old dress into something beautiful. They found beads and ribbons discarded by the stepsisters and used them to decorate the dress. Cinderella could hardly believe her eyes when she saw the result. The dress was now lovely and elegant, perfect for the royal ball. After the two stepsisters were ready, it was finally Cinderella's turn. When her wicked stepmother saw her in the dress, she wasn't pleased. She decided to do everything she could to prevent Cinderella from going to the ball. She told the little girl that she had poured a bowl of grains into the ashes, and Cinderella would have to collect them before she could leave. Just then, when the two stepsisters saw her in the beautiful dress, they became furious. They ripped off the ribbons and beads, tearing the dress to shreds. Cinderella's heart broke as she watched them destroy the only thing that had given her hope.
This was all I had.
Cinderella whispered to herself, her voice breaking. Her tears fell, not just for the dress, but for the dreams that seemed to fade away with it. It seemed like all hope was lost. With a heavy heart, Cinderella trudged to the fireplace, each step feeling heavier than the last. She knew she would never be allowed to go to the ball, not with her dress ruined and no way to fix it. Devastated, Cinderella collected the grains from the ashes, her hands trembling. Tears began to fall down her face, for in that moment, she knew her dream of attending the ball was slipping away. At that moment, the fairy godmother appeared. She asked Cinderella why she was crying, and Cinderella explained her sorrow. The fairy godmother then called upon the birds to separate the grains for her. Once the work was done, the godmother told Cinderella to bring a pumpkin from the yard. After Cinderella carried out the task, the fairy godmother turned the pumpkin into a carriage and the two mice, Gus and Jack, into horses. Cinderella was overjoyed, but once again felt sad because she had no dress for the ball.
Why are you sad, my dear?
I just wanted to go to the ball, but the two sisters tore my dress apart.
Well, dry your tears, child. With a little magic, your dreams can come true.
Then the fairy waved her magic wand over the girl, transforming her into a beautiful princess with a sparkling gown and lovely glass slippers. The fairy then told Cinderella that the carriage would take her to the palace, but she must return. By midnight, as at 12, the magic would wear off. Then the fairy godmother warned Cinderella.
Remember, my child, the magic will wear off at midnight. You must return before the clock strikes 12.
Cinderella promised she would return on time and left for the ball. When she arrived at the palace, she was in awe of the grandeur. The ballroom was filled with people, and everyone seemed to be eagerly awaiting the arrival of the prince. But when Cinderella entered the room, all eyes turned to her. She looked more beautiful than anyone had ever seen. The prince, who had been waiting for a lady who could capture his heart, was immediately drawn to Cinderella. He approached and bowed.
Would you honor me with a dance?
I would love to.
Cinderella, with a smile on her face, accepted. As they danced together, the entire ballroom was enchanted by their chemistry. The prince couldn't take his eyes off her, and Cinderella felt like she had never been so happy. As the evening wore on, Cinderella and the prince became more and more captivated by each other. But as the night passed, the clock began to tick closer to midnight. Cinderella suddenly remembered the warning of the fairy godmother. In a panic, she looked up at the clock and realized that it was almost time for the magic to end.
Oh no, I must go.
She cried out, rushing to the exit. The prince tried to stop her, but she was already running down the stairs.
Wait, I don't even know your name.
The prince exclaimed. As she did, one of her glass slippers slipped off her foot and was left behind on the stairs. Cinderella reached her carriage just in time, and the magic faded as soon as she climbed inside. The prince ran after her, but she had vanished, leaving only the glass slipper behind. The next day, the prince set out to find the owner of the slipper. He went from house to house, trying the slipper on every young lady in the kingdom. when the prince arrived at the house where Cinderella lived. Then she overheard that the prince was searching for the fairy tale girl from the previous night, the one he had danced with, and he knew he would find her by the glass slipper that had fallen. The wicked stepmother made both of her daughters try on the glass slipper.
It fits! It must fit!
No. Let me try again.
But one daughter's foot was too small, and the other's was too large. The prince was confused, as this was the last house on his list of guests from his ball. Then, one of his servants whispered to him that the wicked stepmother had one more daughter. Then the prince insisted that they call the stepdaughter. Lady Tremaine didn't want Cinderella to even touch the glass slipper, but she couldn't do anything about it once the prince ordered to bring the girl. When Cinderella tried, on the slipper it fit perfectly.
It is you, my princess.
He took her hand and smiled. The prince was astonished and knew that he had found his true love. He took Cinderella by the hand and promised to never let her go. Lady Tremaine and her daughters were furious, but it no longer mattered. The young girl was finally free from their cruelty. The prince and Cinderella were married in a grand ceremony and lived happily ever after in the palace. Cinderella never had to work again, and she and the prince shared many happy years together. And as for Gus and Jack, they became royalty too, living in the palace and enjoying all the comforts they could have ever imagined.
Once upon a time in a kingdom far away, a kind and beautiful queen sat by her window, sewing on a cold winter's day. As she worked, she pricked her finger with the needle, and 3 drops of blood fell onto the fresh, white snow outside her window. Seeing the contrast of red against white, she whispered,
"Oh, how I wish for a daughter with skin as white as snow, lips as red as blood, and hair as black as ebony."
Not long after, her wish was granted, and she gave birth to a beautiful baby girl who possessed all the qualities she had dreamed of. They named the child Snow White. However, the queen did not live long after her daughter's birth, and the king, though heartbroken, eventually remarried. His new wife was a woman of great beauty, but also great vanity and cruelty. She possessed a magical mirror and would often stand before it asking,
"Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?"
And the mirror would always reply,
"You, my queen, are the fairest of all."
This pleased the queen greatly, and she lived contentedly, basking in the admiration of her reflection. However, as Snow White grew older, her beauty blossomed, and soon, one day, when the queen posed her usual question, the mirror gave a different answer.
"Queen, you are lovely, it is true, but Snow White is fairer than you."
At these words, the queen's heart filled with envy and rage. She could not bear the thought of anyone surpassing her in beauty, let alone her stepdaughter. Calling upon her most trusted huntsman, she commanded,
"Take the girl deep into the forest and see to it that she does not return. Bring me her heart as proof of your deed."
The huntsman, though loyal, was a kind-hearted man, and as he led Snow White into the forest, he could not bear to harm the innocent girl. He fell to his knees and confessed the queen's wicked plan.
"Run, dear princess. Flee deep into the woods and never return to the castle."
Tears streamed down Snow White's face as she nodded and disappeared into the dark, dense forest. The huntsman, knowing he needed to deceive the queen, slew a wild boar and took its heart as false proof of Snow White's demise. Lost and terrified, Snow White wandered through the forest, the trees looming over her like twisted claws. Strange noises filled the air, and she trembled in fear. At last, Exhausted and near collapse, she stumbled upon a small cottage nestled among the trees. Desperate for shelter, she pushed open the tiny door and stepped inside. Everything in the cottage was small, but perfectly kept. There was a long, wooden table set with 7 tiny plates, 7 tiny spoons, and 7 tiny cups. Against the wall stood 7 little beds, neatly made and adorned with soft blankets. Overcome with exhaustion, Snow White nibbled a bit of bread and drank a sip of water before curling up on 3 of the little beds and falling into a deep sleep. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the owners of the cottage returned home. They were 7 dwarfs who worked in the nearby mines, digging for precious gems. As they stepped inside, they immediately noticed something was amiss.
"Who has been sitting in my chair?"
one asked.
"Who has been eating from my plate?"
another exclaimed.
"Who has been drinking from my cup?"
a third wondered. Then one of them peered into the beds and called out,
"Look, a girl is sleeping in our beds."
Hearing the voices, Snow White woke with a start. Though startled at first, the dwarfs were kind and listened as she tearfully recounted her story. Moved by her plight, they offered her shelter.
"Stay with us, dear Snow White. You will be safe here. But take heed do not open the door to strangers, for the queen will not rest until she sees you gone."
Meanwhile, in the castle, the evil queen once more consulted her mirror.
Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?
To her horror, the mirror replied,
Queen, you are lovely, it is true, but Snow White, beyond the mountains with the 7 dwarfs, is still fairer than you.
Fury consumed the queen as she realized the huntsman had deceived her. Determined to end Snow White once and for all, she disguised herself as an old peddler woman and set off through the forest. She carried with her a ribbon woven of silk and enchanted with dark magic. Arriving at the cottage, she called out in a kind voice,
"Beautiful laces for sale. Let me lace you up properly, dear girl, so your beauty may shine even more."
Snow White, forgetting the dwarf's warning, stepped outside and allowed the woman to lace up her bodice. But the queen pulled the laces so tightly that Snow White could not breathe, and collapsed. Thinking her dead, the queen returned to the castle. That evening, when the dwarfs returned, they found Snow White lifeless on the floor. They quickly cut the laces, and she gasped for air, awakening from the spell. The dwarfs begged her to be cautious and never to trust strangers again. But the queen did not give up. She returned to her castle and once more asked her mirror,
Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?
To her horror, the mirror replied,
Queen, you are lovely, it is true, but Snow White, beyond the mountains with the 7 dwarfs, is still fairer than you.
The queen was relentless. This time she disguised herself as a poor old woman selling fine combs. She hobbled through the forest until she reached the little cottage, knocking gently on the door.
"Come, dear child, see these beautiful combs. They will make your lovely hair shine like the morning sun. Try this beautiful comb, it will make your hair shine like silk."
Snow White, taken in by the kind offer, allowed the woman to place the comb in her hair. The moment it touched her scalp, she fell into a deep faint, for the comb had been soaked in poison. The queen, thinking her mission complete, left with a wicked smile. Luckily, when the dwarfs returned, they discovered the comb and pulled it from her hair, reviving her instantly. After the evil queen returned to the castle and asked her magic mirror, She once again learned that the dwarfs had saved Snow White. Rage consumed her. Her final trick was her most wicked yet.
Then I shall try again. This time she will not escape.
She took a shiny red apple and coated one side with a deadly poison. Once more, disguised as a poor old woman, she hobbled through the forest until she reached the little cottage. Knocking gently on the door, she called out,
Delicious apples for sale. The sweetest, juiciest apples in the land.
Snow White, captivated by the sight of the luscious red fruit, hesitated.
I cannot accept anything. The dwarfs warned me,
She said.
Oh, but look,
The woman said, cutting the apple in half.
I will take a bite from one side, and you can have the other. See, no harm at all.
Thinking it safe, Snow White took a bite from the poisoned side. Instantly she fell to the ground, her eyes closing as a deep, enchanted sleep overtook her. The queen, triumphant at last, cackled as she left, returning to her castle. Once more she asked her mirror,
Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?
At last the mirror replied,
You, my queen, are the fairest of all.
Satisfied, the queen laughed wickedly, believing Snow White was gone forever. When the dwarfs found Snow White, they could not wake her. Believing her truly gone, they placed her in a glass coffin, adorned with gold and precious stones, and mourned her deeply. Time passed, and one day, a prince traveling through the land came upon the coffin. Struck by Snow White's beauty, he pleaded with the dwarfs to allow him to take her to his castle, for he could not bear to part with her. As his servants lifted the coffin, they stumbled, and the jolt caused the piece of poisoned apple lodged in Snow White's throat to dislodge. She gasped and opened her eyes. The prince, overjoyed, asked for her hand in marriage, and Snow White, grateful for his kindness, agreed. A grand wedding was held, and all were invited, even the evil queen, who, upon asking her mirror the fateful question once more, was told,
You, my queen, are lovely. It is true, but the young bride is fairer than you.
In her rage, she went to the wedding. But upon seeing Snow White alive, she collapsed from shock and despair. Snow White and the prince ruled the kingdom with kindness and love, and they lived happily ever after. The end.
Welcome to the Bedtime Stories channel. I am Emma, and today we will bring you the animated version of The Three Little Pigs. If you enjoy these stories, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more magical tales. Are you ready to dive into the magic? Once upon a time, there were three little pigs who lived happily with their mother in a cozy little cottage. But as they grew older, their mother told them it was time for them to set out into the world and make their own way.
My dear children, you are grown now, and must each build a home of your own. But be wise and careful, for the world is full of dangers, and the big bad wolf is always lurking.
The three little pigs hugged their mother goodbye and set off on their journey. As they walked down the road, they talked about their plans. The first little pig, who loved to play more than he liked to work, said,
I will build a house quickly so I can spend my days having fun. I think straw will be the easiest to use.
The second little pig, who was a bit more hardworking but still wanted to finish quickly, said,
I will build mine out of sticks. It will be stronger than straw, but won't take too long to build.
The third little pig, The wisest of them all thought carefully.
I want my house to be strong enough to keep me safe. It will take more time and effort, but I will build it from bricks.
And so the 3 little pigs parted ways, each determined to build their home in their own way. The first little pig, eager to finish quickly and enjoy his time playing, gathered bundles of straw and hastily built his house. It was a simple structure, light and easy to construct, and in no time, he was done. Pleased with his work, he settled down to rest, feeling quite content, until he heard the heavy footsteps of the big bad wolf approaching.
Little pig, let me come in.
The wolf called.
Not by the hair on my chinny chin-chin,
replied the little pig.
Then I'll huff and I'll puff, and I'll blow your house in,
growled the wolf. The wolf took a deep breath and blew with all his might. The straw house collapsed instantly, and the little pig ran as fast as he could to his brother's house. The second little pig, eager to finish his home quickly, gathered a pile of sticks and built a small house. It was sturdier than the straw house, but still not very strong. Just as he was admiring his work, his brother came running, out of breath and frightened. Before they could even catch their breath, the big bad wolf appeared once more.
Now, little pigs, let me come in,
the wolf demanded.
Not by the hair on our chinny chin-chins,
the 2 pigs shouted.
Then I'll huff and I'll puff and I'll blow your house in,
the wolf roared. He huffed and puffed, and the stick house came crashing down. The 2 little pigs squealed in fright and ran as fast as their legs could carry them to their older brother's house. Their little hearts pounded as they dashed through the woods, hearing the wolf's heavy footsteps behind them. The third little pig, being both wise and hardworking, had carefully built his house using sturdy bricks. He had spent days ensuring that every brick was securely in place, making the house solid and strong. When his frightened brothers arrived, he quickly let them inside, bolting the door behind them to keep them safe from the big bad wolf. The wolf's eyes gleamed with hunger as he licked his lips, ready to feast on the foolish little pigs. Soon, the big bad wolf arrived and knocked on the door.
Little pigs, let me come in,
he called.
Not by the hair on our chinny chin-chins,
the 3 pigs replied together.
Then I'll huff and I'll puff and I'll blow your house in,
the wolf bellowed. The wolf took a deep breath and blew with all his might. But no matter how hard he huffed and puffed, the brick house stood firm. He tried again and again, but the house would not fall. Furious and desperate, the wolf decided to trick the pigs.
Little pigs, I know where there's a fine field of turnips,
he said sweetly.
Shall I take you there tomorrow morning?
But the clever third pig replied,
Thank you, Mr. Wolf. Where is this field?
At Farmer Brown's garden. I'll come by at 6 in the morning to take you there.
The wise little pig got up at 5, gathered turnips, and was back home before the wolf arrived. The wolf was furious. Then the wolf tried again.
Little pig, I know where there's a great apple tree,
he said.
Shall I take you there tomorrow?
Where is it?
asked the pig.
In the orchard beyond the hill. I'll come by at 5 in the morning.
But the little pig woke up at 4, gathered apples, and was back home before the wolf appeared. The wolf was angrier than ever. Determined to catch the pigs, the wolf finally said,
Little pig, there's a fair tomorrow. Shall we go together?
The pig agreed, but he went early, before the wolf arrived. At the fair, he bought a butter churn. On his way home, he saw the wolf coming up the hill. Quickly, he jumped into the churn and rolled down the hill. Seeing the strange rolling object, the wolf got so frightened that he ran away. Furious and humiliated, The wolf paced around the house trying to think of a way to get inside. Then he spotted the chimney and hatched a plan.
If I can't blow the house down, I'll sneak in through the top,
he thought with a wicked grin, but the wise little pig had been keeping an eye on the wolf. He quickly stoked the fire and placed a large pot of water over it to boil. Just as the wolf clambered onto the roof and squeezed himself down the chimney, the scalding steam rose to meet him.
Yow!
The wolf howled as he tumbled straight into the bubbling pot. With a desperate leap, he scrambled out and dashed into the woods, howling in pain and humiliation. From that day on, he never dared to bother the 3 little pigs again. The first 2 pigs, grateful for their brother's wisdom and bravery, promised to work as hard as he had. They all lived together in the strong brick house, safe and happy, knowing that careful planning and effort always triumph over laziness and tricks.